Occasionally, a game comes along that sucks me in and won't let go. And in recent history, Elden Ring has done just that. What about the game has me so hooked, you may be wondering? Is it the expansive open world with a plethora of enemies to fight and secrets to find? Or is it the deep story and lore, which keeps me playing out of a desire to find out what happens next? Or could it be the challenging gameplay that, while difficult at times, never feels impossible? Well, it's actually all of the above, and in this review, we'll discuss how these elements work seamlessly together to create an experience unlike any other. First off, I'm new to soulsborne style games. They always intimidated me, and that kept me from jumping in. I did try Sekiro for about 10 minutes or so, and gave up because of the difficulty. So keep in mind that this review is coming from someone who has very limited knowledge regarding previous titles published by FromSoft. However, Elden Ring looked far more approachable, and it was receiving very positive reviews, so I decided to give it a try. I approached it with caution, since I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. I had barely seen any trailers for the game leading up to launch, and only watched a little bit of gameplay on YouTube before deciding to purchase it for myself. As of now, I've put over 100 hours into the game, with no end in sight. I still need to finish the main story, and there are some parts of the map I haven't fully explored yet, but I think I've seen enough to form an opinion on the game. The game provides a little backstory, and some basic tutorials to get you started. But the tutorial can be skipped if you want, and once it drops you out into the open world, you can pretty much do anything and go anywhere. The open world is gorgeous, and the game doesn't hold your hand at all. At times it can be a little intimidating, and the lack of guidance can sometimes allow you to miss an important item or two. It's for that reason that I highly recommend you stick to the path they suggest until you get the horse and the ability to level up by converting your runes into levels. Once you unlock those skills, then you can just run off and do whatever you want. I played for hours before finally stumbling into the first major boss fight, since I accidentally walked around the castle and completely missed the path that led to the main entrance. Speaking of bosses, let's briefly discuss that first fight against Margit the Fell Omen. Margit is designed to be the first major boss a player fights, and there's a skill check to see if you're good enough to progress. His boss arena is quite narrow, and some of his attacks have a long reach, so if you haven't mastered how to properly dodge, then now is the time. I didn't beat him until my character was around level 50, and that's one thing that makes Elden Ring less frustrating than past FromSoft games. If you're struggling, then you can go and find plenty of stuff to do in the world. Then once you are stronger, come back and try again. The game doesn't stop dead in its tracks when you come across something you can't beat. If you want the extra challenge, you have that option, but if you feel like returning 20 hours later when you're able to just destroy him, you can do that as well. And even after leveling up a lot, that fight still wasn't easy. One thing I've learned while playing this game is that even if you think you're overleveled, there's still something that can take you out in an instant if you're not careful. And that's the reason why the game is still fun to me and has kept my interest for as long as it has. It remains challenging throughout the entire playthrough. Sure, eventually you'll get to a point where basic enemies pose almost no threat, but in larger numbers, you can still become overwhelmed and lose. Another thing that makes constantly losing to a boss far less frustrating are the generous number of checkpoints the game provides. If you lose, you can usually get back to the boss to try again rather quickly, which allows you to try different strategies until you find a way to win. Defeating a boss first try is a rare occurrence, especially early in the game, so don't feel discouraged if you lose a lot. It's expected that you will, and the game is built around that fact. As I write this review, I'm close to fighting what most people call the hardest boss in the game, and it's one that you may just skip because it's completely optional. But she's also a really awesome looking boss, so I want to see how many tries it takes for me to defeat her. I'm around level 170, so we'll see if that's enough. I have a feeling that my current build should be well suited to take her on. That's if I can land a hit before she decimates me. I also need to defeat her for one of the side quests I'm currently working on. To keep it as vague as possible, let's just say I opened a door I shouldn't have, and now I'm likely going to get the game's bad ending, based on what I've read online. And while that could be cool to see, this side quest should give me an item to reverse that poor decision. But unfortunately, it requires defeating one of the hardest bosses, so we'll see if it all works out. But speaking of story, it had me hooked. Without going into any spoilers, I'll just say that the lore of this world adds to my enjoyment tremendously. And while the main story is really engaging, there are various side quests which can also unlock additional stories and even alter the game's ending. I've done a bunch of these quests, so I can't wait to see what my game's ending looks like. That is, after I undo that bad ending I just talked about. But a lot of these side quests progress naturally throughout your adventure, and it may take your whole playthrough for those stories to reach their natural conclusion. And while we're on the subject of side quests, don't expect to find a quest log in your game. A lot of people hate this fact, but it just adds to the organic nature of these quests. You have to get to know these people and figure out where they may go next based on what they're trying to accomplish. And most of these quests are designed in such a way that missing them at one stop along their journey doesn't always break the whole quest line. And if you find them later on down the road, it will still allow things to progress naturally. Let's talk for a second about the vast number of weapons and items that this game has for you to discover. At times it feels endless. I've gathered quite a few weapons, talismans, and spells, but it still seems like I'm always finding something new. No matter what weapon you may choose to specialize in, it's always possible to build your character around it. You'll find rare and powerful items that can complement any build tucked away in almost every corner of this world. And at the end of most dungeons in the game, you'll get a nice reward too. Speaking of dungeons, there are also numerous caverns and crypts scattered around the map, which offer some more linear gameplay in this otherwise open world. When you enter one of these locations, you'll find yourself going through a small, self-contained dungeon with enemies, secret paths, and sometimes a puzzle or two. And at the end, you'll usually find a boss who will drop a rare item for defeating it. I just picked up what is probably the best shield in the game, and I had to work for it. The area I needed to traverse was a very difficult platforming section, where one misstep would mean falling to my death. But the reward was well worth the effort. The creature design in this game is also on a whole different level. Every design is interesting, from things that will leave you in shock and awe, to beasts right out of your darkest nightmares. Sometimes you can't help but stare for a few seconds as you enter a boss arena to see what crazy thing they've cooked up next. And there's nothing like the first time you fight something new, not having a clue what its moveset might be or what it's capable of, and then finally defeating it, sometimes after many tries. The sense of accomplishment is quite the intoxicating feeling. The intricate world design also complements these creatures perfectly and creates environments which can be both gorgeous and challenging to traverse. The density of the world is also impressive, and it feels like I'm running into some new and interesting landmark every few minutes. It's very rare to be moving through an area without something drawing your attention. The graphical fidelity of the environments is also top-notch, especially if playing in 4K. Of all the open world games I've played, this might be the most detailed one I've ever experienced. The size of the map is also vast. At one point I thought I had been to every major section, but then there was a whole new area I unlocked. It still amazes me how large it really is. And some areas are quite difficult to reach, but I highly recommend you explore every corner of the map because it will be well worth the journey. Overall, Elden Ring is an impressive piece of open world game design, with gorgeous visuals, challenging combat, and environments that make me want to explore every nook and cranny. I can't think of a game in recent history that I have enjoyed more than this one. So, that's why I'm giving Elden Ring a score of 10 golden seeds out of 10. Well, that about wraps things up for this review. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, it really helps me out. And subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss a video. I recently passed 700 subscribers, and I plan on doing a giveaway when I hit 1,000. Let's see if we can make it happen. Everyone, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.